Andres, how are you doing?
I'm
Good to
doing
see you.
great. I'm doing great, Tim. Good to see you.
Well, I want to welcome you to a batch of the Biscuit Blitz. And one thing that's been great about this series is we don't know everybody that we interview. Like, we started this because when COVID hit, we wanted Matt Olin and I set the goal of knowing more people coming out of this time of isolation than we knew going into it. And so Trey McGriff, a buddy of mine, said you and I would get along like a house on fire. And so it's awesome. I'm looking forward to having a 5-minute chat with you today.
Yeah. Trey's a great guy, and I'm glad he made this connection.
Me too. Well, all right. So let's start off. Let's jump in before we hit the clock on tell us who you are, how long you've been in the Charlotte area, and what you do as your vocation and what you do with as your avocation.
All right. My name is Andres Echevarria. I've been in the Charlotte area for 21 years. God, that's crazy. And my day job, I am in cybersecurity, and I advocate for movies. I love watching movies.
How did you? I have to ask before I hit the stopwatch. How did you feel about the news with the Manor Theater closing? Did that hit you hard or no?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very big on the theatrical experience. I mean, that's something that I grew up with. And the Manor, you know that you can get to certain movies at the Manor that you're not going to get somewhere else.
Yeah.
So losing that outlet was tough.
I think my feeling on it, to your point, is, when I go to a movie at a giant movieplex, I've seen the trailers, I've read the reviews, I've done all that stuff. It's not so much a surprise, right? You kind of know what you're getting into when you go see Rise of Skywalker. I think the Manor was a place to fall in love with films that didn't have that kind of pub and could surprise and delight you, I think.
That's yeah, most definitely. I mean, there's a lot of movie discovery that you can do through the Manor. But it's interesting the point of view on trailers, because I stopped watching trailers a few years ago altogether.
Maybe I might need to embrace that, because well, they're full of MacGuffins anyway now. So I spent half the movie going, when is that scene? It's not. Oh, they filmed that just to make me. Oh, thank you very much, Kevin Feige.
Yeah, I'll watch the first teaser that's about a minute and a half to get the tone of the film, and then after that, I'm done.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna embrace. I think that's wise words. I'm gonna embrace that. And then one last question. So, what brought you to Charlotte 21 years
ago? Two things: work and my future wife.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So at that point, I was living in Raleigh. She was back here. She is from the Charlotte area, from Belmont, and I found a way to get closer to her and advance my career, and it just worked out great.
That's beautiful. Well, does she have the same passion for film that you have?
She's interested. Her dad is an artist. So she is actually an advocate of all kinds of art. So I kind of married into a very artistic family. So it's been really nice.
That's good. Well, all right. So tell us about your 2019 project.
So in 2019, I decided to try something that has been on my mind for a while, and that was to watch a movie a day. It wasn't necessarily, I had to watch a movie every single day, but 365 movies in 1 year, average of a movie a day.
Wow. And did you achieve that? Did you hit the mark?
I actually did. I got to 375 movies. So I eclipsed it by 10 movies. But it was such an interesting challenge to get there, because I'm not a film critic. I don't do this professionally. I don't get paid to watch movies and talk about them. I just am passionate about it. So finding time to watch a movie every day in the midst of work and taking kids to soccer games and coaching soccer and all that, the rest of the things I was doing, sometimes was a big challenge.
Yeah. I won't get into why you love film as much, because I'm going to put a link to your video that you did about why, but what I felt bonded to you, because I too fell in love with film in the 80s.
Yeah.
I thought it was fantastic that the very first clip that you showed was from Teen Wolf, which I watched with my kids a week ago. It was probably like the 20th time I've seen Teen Wolf. What is it? What do you think it is about movies that just gets to us and bonds people together. Because when you get people talking about movies, it doesn't matter where they're from, what background, how old they are. It just is an instant kind of bond that people have.
Yeah, it's an early common language for all of us. You start to connect with movies on a personal level, just individually. You can connect with a certain character and what they've gone through, and you see yourself in those characters. And then when you find somebody that likes the same movies, you instantly have this connection that is nonverbal.
Right.
You know, based on the fact that person loves that movie as much as you, that they have this shared common sensibility, and you've kind of found this tribe, this community to connect to. And I always tell my son that we would quote movies all the time. Love, Breakfast Club, Teen Wolf, Ferris Bueller, and those were almost like the original memes, right? That's what the first meme culture started with, quoting movies. And you could say part of a quote, and then somebody across the room would finish it, and you had a connection instantly.
I mean, I've had, working with Matt Olin, who's been, we met in high school and went to college together. We often have entire conversations that are just movie quotes, because there's all these layers and connotations. When you say something to someone, it is a sensibility. Then you overlay, if you're friends, what might have happened when you saw that movie together, or it does have that kind of common, like with you, when I was watching some of your videos to prep and you were talking about movies that surprised you, like It Follows. That movie hit me like a ton of bricks when I saw it, and I tell people about it, and I'm like, what? I've never seen that movie, never even heard of it. And so I know something about you because you picked that movie.
And that's a great point. Is when you tell people the kinds of movies you like, there is some type of connection. There also is some preconceived judgment, things like that all comes with that. It's a shorthand to get to know people. And it really is interesting kind of how we've grown up with those movies and how they've informed so much of our pop culture taste and things that we're into. But one of the things that I have found interesting through this whole journey, talking to my nephews, I was talking about some of these movies that we grew up on, and I was talking about doing this retrospective series, right? Because I watched 375 movies. I get to the end of that, and it just felt like I had to do something with it. I couldn't just let it go. I wasn't trying to brag or shout from the rooftops, but I wanted to make some type of like scrapbook kind of memory so that it just didn't just fade away. And I was talking to my nephews about that, and we're talking about, films that we grew up with. And one of the things that came out about that, we were talking about movie quotes that we were saying earlier. And I asked him, so what movies are you watching over and over again? And he said, I don't. I have so many options these days. There is no reason for me to watch a movie twice. And it just kind of broke my heart, because I think about how many times I watch Breakfast Club. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. And there's certain movies that you have to watch more than once because there's so much nuance, there's so many layers. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, I just found out last week that all of the cars in there have license plates that are John Hughes movies. I've never noticed that. Yeah, I've seen that movie a million times, and I never knew that. I'm still discovering things about a movie that I've seen that many times. So
no, go ahead, please.
It's a shame that we might lose that.
How old is he?
He is 16.
I'm wondering if that might change, because you and I both know. I mean, you hit this age, and you decide, I want to go back to the beginning. I want to go back to the stuff that formed me. I'm starting to watch my kids, who are teenagers, go back, and they're rewatching all the Disney Plus stuff and the Disney movies they liked as kids, and while I don't like them, they have a lot of meaning to them, and it's a comfort. It's like eating comfort food. Like, and it's weird too, how when someone doesn't spark to a movie that you love, it's almost like a gut punch. Like Ferris Bueller I had to sneak into that movie. I was not 13. My parents forbade me to see it, and I went and saw it anyway. And so not only did I love the movie, but it was like this rebellious thing that I did. My kids do not want to watch it at all. I've tried to start it like 10 times, and they just don't want to watch it. And that hurts a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it feels very personal. We make a personal connection to these movies, and it's something that I said in my video, um, because it does bring us back to a certain place and time in our lives, just like good music, right? You hear a
Right.
song and you instantly are transported back.
Um,
Oh,
so one question I know that everybody asks you, what was your favorite movie? I'm not going to ask you that. What's a movie that you came out of this experience really recommending to a lot of people? You know, that maybe it's not your favorite movie, but it's a movie that you saw that isn't mainstream, perhaps, that you've really found yourself saying, you guys need to see this.
yeah, so that's most definitely a hard question because that changed as I went along. Right,
Okay.
it's always something that was kind of recent. So It Follows was one that I definitely championed. There's a movie called Compliance that I had
Oh,
never even heard of.
that movie
That
is amazing.
Yep,
I've recommended that to a lot of people. It's terrible.
yeah,
That's worse than the worst horror movie ever. That movie.
yeah, and it's amazing because it's based on a true story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the one thing that I have found that is kind of in a common thread with these movies that I'm like, you got to see it. Like another one was In the Tall Grass. It's on
Yep.
Netflix. It's this whole thing of doing a lot with a very, very little amount of budget, actors, real
Right.
estate, whatever. Doing a lot with a little bit. All of these movies have that, right? Compliance is single location, handful of actors.
Three? It's essentially three actors, right?
Right.
Four,
It Follows is the same thing. It's 3 or 4 actors, very limited locations. In the Tall Grass, kind of same thing. That's when you really see creative people like be creative.
Yeah.
And the stories is driving and the actors are really working. Those kind of films are just amazing.
I wouldn't. Now, this is not a small film, but my Netflix like constant recommendation, and I'm finally starting to see it come up on lists, is Train to Busan. Like I have watched that movie so many times, and the end scene gets me every time, just like it did
Yep.
the first.
Yeah, it's amazing how many movies are just out there, though, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I had to do with my movie a day challenge was I had to get like a watch list going of just a handful of movies and kind of work through that because otherwise it was decision paralysis. There's just so many movies that I've wanted to watch, but yeah, it was great being able to finally catch up on those. But I had to narrow it down. There's just so many options out there.
All right, what's the last movie you watched, like before today?
Actually, it was the Eurovision Song Contest with the Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams. And I'll be honest, it was better than I thought.
I've not checked that one out yet. I'm gonna have to.
It wasn't just just slapstick comedy, which is what I was expecting. Like I actually connected, and it was really good. I enjoyed it.
All right, I'm gonna have to take a bite out of that one. All right, well, this has been. I could do this for another 5 hours, but we've already blown through. We've done double the 10-minute challenge. This was a lot of fun. I invite you to be part of the Biscuit whenever you want. If you want to talk.
I'd love to.
This would be great. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Tim. Pleasure to be here.
Take care.